Hello and welcome to Charlotte's Web, Mike Graham.
Good afternoon and welcome to you as well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. You look like you're in somewhere quite fancy at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in our brand new studios. I don't know when this is going out, but we on January the 5th on Monday are going to kick off our new breakfast show, 7 to 9 a.m. every single weekday morning. Absolutely going at it, hammer and tongs with loads of great guests, loads of planks, loads of fun messages. We're going to get to phone calls at some point, not quite straight away, but it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Could you have envisaged you being in this position at this time 3 months ago?
Not really, no, because 3 months ago I was still sort of working with and or for News UK, but they decided that they didn't want me to do that anymore, and so now I'm going out on my own, and I'm delighted actually because I'm working with some great people, and we're putting together a whole new channel, which is great fun actually, starting from the bottom, where you have to think about hiring a studio, which we've done, getting furniture, getting lights, getting cameras, getting, all the tech sorted out. So it's been quite a big job to do. But it's been really, really interesting and really rewarding because with every day that passes, you get something else in and you build it more and you get better guests. And, and we get to keep all the money as well. We can pay people who do work for us, but, we don't have to give any of it away to the bosses, which is very nice.
You're literally building it and they will follow because your
Yeah,
subscribers have gone like that so quickly,
I
haven't
know.
they?
Yeah, we got nearly 120,000 subscribers. We did a plank of the year just last week, just before Christmas. Put it out on Christmas Day, and it's down. I think it's done about 109,000, something like that,
Wow.
which is brilliant, and also much better than the Ersatz one, which has been sort of hijacked by them, who shall remain nameless. So it's done better than theirs as such. So long may it continue. We'll be doing plank of the week every single week as well.
Yes, you've totally reclaimed the planks.
Absolutely.
Was that your insult? Like, did you used to always go around calling people planks and then it
Well,
developed
it
from
kind
there?
of was. I mean, I sort of came up with it when I was still working at Talk Sport, actually, when I was with two mics. And because I thought the guy I was working with was such a plank, he's such an idiot. I wanted to call him a lot of names all the time, but I suddenly thought of plank. And then I realized it was originally actually a word that was made back sort of in the 50s or 60s. There was a guy called Eric Sykes, a comedian. And they actually made a film called The Plank about
Ah,
these three guys who were complete idiots and who sort of worked as painters and decorators or something like that. And so the word was out. I mean, so I can't claim that I invented the word, but I sort of resurrected it unknowingly because it just seemed to me to be a great word. Because to call somebody thick as a plank was something we used to do at school. And so so it's not really offensive. I mean, I could call Joe Biden a plank, and people can't say, "Oh, you're making fun of the fact that he's got a disability." Well, not really, because I'm not calling him a cretin. I'm not calling him a
I
fucking
will.
idiot. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of less offensive as a word. So on the sort of the Ofcom scale, it doesn't even register. There's nobody can complain about being called a plank because it's not a terrible word.
At the
So yeah,
moment.
and then the whole show began because I think it was about 6 years ago, one Christmas, I was sitting around at home, as you do on Christmas Day, feeling a bit bored, and started making a list of people who were sort of planks of the year. And I remember I did the first 10, and I put it out on Twitter. And people were like, "Yeah, you haven't mentioned Prince Andrew, or you haven't mentioned, Prince Harry, or you haven't mentioned, all these other people." So I suddenly started making another 10, another 10. Eventually, I had like 100 planks of the year, and and I went into work the following week, and one of my producers said, "There's a show in this," and I went, "Yeah, I think you're right." So we did a kind of we did a sort of top of the pop style countdown of the top 10 planks of the year, and then the next thing we were actually filming an episode of it in this tiny little studio, which wasn't even really a studio. We had a kind of blue curtain behind us, a couple of chairs, and a table,
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
and that was it. Russell Quirk was on it, and Nunziata Rees-Mogg was on it. There was three of us, that was when it started. And so I thought, well, when I leave this place, News UK, and Talk, I'm not going to let them just carry on producing it. I'm going to do it myself because it's my show. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
It's bound to fizzle out on their part, in my opinion. It
I
can't.
don't
They
think
can't
so.
continue.
No, I mean, I think they'll just give up in the end because it's not very funny when I'm not doing it, to be honest. So
Well,
that's
that's
what everybody
true.
says, and the whole point about it is it's meant to be funny, you know.
Didn't the actual plank say with Mike Graham on it as well?
Yes, well, funnily enough, a guy made that for us and sent it in, and on one side it said Plank of the Week, and on the other side it said Plank of the Week, and then my name. So
Oh,
it may well be that we get another one. There's already been a couple of people who've said we'll make one for you and send it in. So at the moment we've got a sort of makeshift plank
have you got it there?
that our producer. I'll have to go and walk over there and get it though. Do you
Go
want me to
on,
go?
go and get it.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, hang on a minute. I'll get it for you.
Thank you.
It's actually, I'm actually quite proud of it. Here it is.
Oh,
Look at
the
that.
new plank.
There we are. I can just leave it there if you like. But
Did you
yeah.
make that?
So Pooch, who's one of our producers, and the guy that's kind of done all the really hard work and put the studio together and all of that. He's the guy that made that because he's a man of many talents. So
Carpenter as well.
carpenter as well. So if we don't get anyone to send one in, we'll just use that one because it's pretty good.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, not bad for first time, is it?
Well, this is it. I mean, we've done all of this in about a month, which is amazing, because a month ago we didn't even have a studio. And I kept thinking, and Pooch kept saying to me, he said, "Oh yeah, we'll be all right. We'll be ready. We'll be in for just before Christmas." And I'm going, "Are you sure?" And it was like a week before, and he managed it. He's a miracle worker. So he managed to get this studio in London, central London. We've kitted it out. We've got it all set up. People who've seen Plank of the Year will have seen it. We've recorded. I'm going to record something in it today as well to do like Plank of the Day. So yeah, we're sort of rocking and rolling. And behind me, as you can see, there's a clock which is not actually properly switched on yet because we thought it's almost as though time's standing still, right? So you don't want to switch the clock on until you're actually live. So when we're live, the clock will look like it's working because people said when we were doing Plank of the Year, the clock doesn't work. It's as if, we watched over Russell Quirk's shoulder and it doesn't move. Yeah, we know it hasn't got a battery in it. So
Everyone thinks you
it
don't
will
know.
work.
Well, in terms of this show, well, first of all, a lot of people who are watching this are thinking they're surprised that you'd come on a show that I'm hosting because maybe our views differ or I'm a bit too far out there for you.
Well, you and I have known each other a long time, and I've sort of followed your journey from, a relatively what I would call as a sort of run of the mill normal person to going to completely bonkers and working with Gareth Ike and all of that. But that's fine, But the thing is, the point about all of this is that you don't have to agree about everything. There are some things that we agree on, and some things that I probably wouldn't agree on. But it doesn't matter, because
You'll understand how the world works one day, Mike.
well, maybe, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I get this a lot though from people. Now you're independent. Why don't you say sorry to Tommy Robinson? I'm like, well, sorry for what? Why don't you realise that we're all on the same page? Well, no, we're not all on the same page. The whole point about being independent is that you're independent. Some of these wallies think that being independent means you have to think the same way as other people who are independent. Well, that's not independence, is it? I was the one that started the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, and I've been talking about some of the shit I've been talking about for years before these bozos were ever even heard of. I've been doing this for a long time. I left newspapers in 2006, and I've been on the radio ever since, right? And that's already nearly 20 years. And some of these characters, were selling watches and, doing time in prison. And suddenly now they all think that they're journalists, and they're not journalists because they haven't got my training, they haven't done what I've done, they don't know what I know, and they don't understand how to delineate the truth from a tissue of bloody lies, to be honest.
I think we're living in a time now where the phrase, I can't think of the but it's okay to disagree. You know what I mean?
Well,
There's
I
so
think
many
so. Well,
people. No.
I wish some of the people who call themselves independent journalists would and citizen journalists would understand that. But that's part of the problem that they don't get. They don't understand that it's all right to have an opinion. I used to do this overnight show on Talk Sport many years ago when I first started in London on Talk Sport around about 2008, 9. And people would ring up and say, "Well, my opinion is just as important as yours." And I'd be going, "No, it isn't actually. It actually fucking isn't, because I know shit that you don't know. I've been places you've never been. I've spoken to people you've never spoken to. So actually, you're very much entitled to your opinion, but it's not as important as mine. You know,
Or it's not
simple.
as correct as mine. I was going for a fun show, aren't we? Because to commemorate you bringing Plank back and all that kind of thing, I said, let's do Plank of the Decade.
Yes, this is a good one. I never thought of that. I'm amazed that you thought of it before I did.
It was
Now I can't do
ChatGPT,
it.
it wasn't me.
Because now I can't do it.
You can do it. If you can do the better version.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Plank of the
That-
decade. You know, it's funny because most of what we think about is what's in front of us. You know, like so for the last couple of years, or maybe the last 4 or 5 years, you go back to Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, you know, Chris Whitty, all of those wankers who were telling us to, you know, socially distance and wear a mask and all of that crap. And it's hard to think before that, but actually, if you go back to the days of Barack Obama and you know
Hillary Clinton.
yeah, Hillary Clinton, days of like Theresa May and the whole Brexit thing. Because I mean, that was kind of where I made my bones to a large extent for talk radio back in, I think it was 2018, I suppose it would have been summer of 2018 when. Was it 2018 or was it? Yeah, I think it was. And when we were down on College Green every single day, and nothing was happening. And I'd have this, you know, continued sort of, you know, procession of MPs and lords coming past us, and we used to just nick them all from the BBC and ITV because they had to walk past our little tent before they got to the BBC, and they didn't really know who we were, and I'd monster all of them. And a lot of that stuff is still out there on YouTube. And you know, that was a terrible time for plankery because there were so many, like Tory MPs in particular, who didn't want to leave the European Union. You know, you had so many people putting
Yeah, Lisa Nandy, didn't you? You had a bit of
Lisa Nandy, all the
yeah.
spanners in the works. You know, and if you think back to those days, or back all the way back to 2015. You know, when you had people like Jeremy Corbyn knocking around and Ed Miliband leading the Labour Party, you know,
Forgot
it was
about
a disaster, absolute disaster, but great fun for us.
Absolutely. So we will get kicking off with some of the nominees for Plank of the Decade.
Yeah.
And because we don't maybe see the world in the same kind of view as each other, we're going to probably have a bit of a laugh about it too, aren't we?
I think so. Yeah, go on then. So have you got a running sort of list, have you?
Well, I've got a few different things that I've put together. So let's start off with something that we definitely agree on, and that is the BBC.
Oh my God, yeah, the BBC, crikey. And
Where do you start with this?
Yeah, well, that's a great picture to start off with, isn't it? That's is that Jeremy Bowen who's lying down in the ditch there? Jeremy Bowen.
lying in the ditch, pretending he's in danger with a woman shopping just in the background there.
I mean, to be fair to him, he's probably in a place in I think he's in Kiev or somewhere, which was under bombardment from the Russians. And I think the thing that people don't get about war these days is that it's not like it used to be. It's not like, you know, two loads of men line up at either end of a field and start just running at each other. You know, what you get is this kind of urban warfare where we saw it just this week. You know, with Russian drones like bombing apartment buildings, setting them on fire. So, I mean, it is possible. When I was in Bosnia, right, it is possible to be. I mean, when I went to Bosnia, I was in a place called Vitez. And just before I got there, the whole place the whole main street had been blown up by a car bomb. So you would drive past, you know, ordinary people just walking up and down the street. There was a fucking great crater in the middle of the road, which you had to drive around. I mean, I could have quite happily gone and lay down in that and had a picture taken going, this is dangerous, you know, and there'd be somebody walking past. So, I mean, I'm sure that there was probably people who had died there or something, but I mean, it is typical of the BBC who have got such a ludicrous view of the world that they think only they know what's actually going on. I mean, one of the things that's really wound me up, and I'm going to do it as a plank of the day at some point soon, is the woman who was responsible for the BBC content when they made that Gaza documentary earlier this year. When it turned out that the boy that they were interviewing, who they were sort of trying to paint as this, you know, poor innocent little chap, you know, having terrible time at the hands of the dreaded, ghastly Israelis, it turned out he was the son of a Hamas government minister, right? She has just been awarded a fucking MBE.
Of course.
For services to broadcasting. And you go, sorry, what? I mean, she had to leave the BBC under a cloud, but they've now given her an honour, you know, and you just think to yourself, you know, what is it that they can't get right at the BBC? You know, Hugh Edwards, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, you know, the list goes on and on and on. they keep getting everything wrong. They've lost the director general, they've lost the head of news, they've lost the head of content, and still they think it's a good idea um, to produce a show about people dancing as if it's their, flagship kind of thing. And it's like, just fuck off. Sorry for swearing, but I'm just
Yeah.
not interested in anything the BBC does. Their news is awful. I think they've lost another 4 million subscribers to the license fee. People, because the license fee is now £174. I mean, it's not cheap. And they're still, I mean, my son, right, who's a student in Manchester, keeps getting threatening letters from them because when he moved into the flat that he's living in, there's a television in there, but he doesn't watch it. And they keep addressing letters to somebody, whoever the resident is. It's not even him. And I said, just chuck it in the bin.
Yeah,
Um,
do.
but he's like, he's not like me. He's like, I don't really like. It's like really threatening and horrible. I was like, well, they're never going to do anything, and don't open the door to them if they turn up. But these people are disgusting. They go after old women and pensioners, frightening the life out of them, saying they're going to put them in prison. They produce the world's worst television. It's as woke as hell. It's rubbish, right? Nobody is interested in it. They don't. I mean, I can't remember the last thing I watched on the BBC. It was any good. Yeah, Question Time's crap. All of their kind of panorama has been discredited completely, right? Because these are the people that trumped up the charges against Donald Trump and spliced together um, two bits of video to make it look as if he said something he didn't say. He's suing them for 10 billion. I mean, it's just the whole place is literally an utter walking disaster.
We haven't even mentioned BBC Verify, for example. So
Yeah.
that's Mariana Spring on that picture, on her
Yeah.
theories that she'd done. Why do you
More
hate
like
me?
Mariana Winter. I think she should rename herself. She blocked me within about a week of joining Twitter
Same.
because I asked her a question that she didn't like. And, they're useless. I mean, BBC Verify, it's like you don't need to have a completely different department to verify the news. It's called being a journalist. You're supposed to check stuff before you run it. But they don't check it before they run it. They just run it. And then when BBC Verify get asked to check something that somebody else has done, they're full of the joys of spring, if you like.
Yes, very
But
good.
they don't actually check their own homework. It's wankers.
Well, I think personally, in a conspiratorial fashion, she was put there and that in order to maintain narratives, if you will.
Yes.
And the most recent disgusting thing that she was part of was the attack on a nurse, Kate Shemarani. I don't know if you've seen that, where they basically created Kate's daughter sadly died last year in under the care of the NHS, and they've made out that Kate as responsible for her daughter's death. And so it's been disgusting. Because maybe she shouldn't follow traditional advice or whatever. But anyway, so they've done this big thing and painted her as a monster. So I think that's despicable. Then behind the picture there, I've got Eric Gill's statue. Have you seen Eric Gill's? Which they paid.
Extraordinaire.
Spending millions to protect and keep up, aren't they? License pays money.
Yeah.
And they won't rip it down.
Yeah. It's funny, last night I was watching an episode of Yes Minister, because it's one of my favourite shows. It's probably a long time ago for a lot of people who are watching this, and it might be something that they've never heard of, but it's the most brilliant show because it's all about how politics actually works, and it's done with a sense of humour. And I think you'd even find things in there that would confirm some of your, worst fears. And there's one point at which the minister, played by Paul Eddington, I think his name is, does an interview with Ludovic Kennedy, who was one of the kind of the star interviewers of the BBC. And it turns out that he gets all sorts of things wrong, and it's all very embarrassing. So they decide they're going to try and get it pulled from the BBC. And so they have a meeting with the head of the BBC in some private members club, and they say to him, look, obviously we can't influence what the BBC puts out. But obviously, there are problems with the interview because there are matters of national security involved. And so the BBC guy goes, well, of course, you can't influence the BBC because you're the government. But if it's national security, well, then obviously we'd have to pull it. We wouldn't be able to run it. And there's also some mistakes in it. Oh, yes, well, we can't have any of that. So the idea, for example, that the government doesn't influence the BBC is complete and utter cobblers, right? I think you and I might differ as to why they do it. I think most of it is just an arse covering exercise by people who don't want the BBC to do anything that might embarrass them, But it's a bit like, when Keir Starmer locked up Lucy Connolly and made out that, it was all just a matter of law. And the reason she got locked up was because she pleaded guilty. Absolute nuts. Problems, she was told to plead guilty. The CPS were told to press for charges as hard as they possibly could. The judges were told to punish people as much as they possibly could. And the idea that Keir Starmer wasn't involved in that in any way is just absolute and utter crap,
Does that lead us on to our next plank, which is Keir Starmer?
Oh my God! Well, I mean, I don't know how you get past Keir Starmer. I mean, he won Plank of the Year on our show, and I think he won it last year as well. And he was only in for half of last year. There he is, tripping up at COP30. I mean, he is single-handed.
Call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.
I mean, what's he doing there? What does he think he's doing? I mean, who would film themselves punching a punch bag like that unless you were a complete and utter plank? I mean, he's so useless, but he's actually worse than useless because he's actually criminally, I think, dishonest. He tells lie after lie after lie. I mean, the latest controversy is this guy El Fatwa, whatever his fucking name is, from Egypt, right? Who he said he was delighted to bring back into the country after getting him freed from an Egyptian jail. And it turns out this guy hates Jews, hates white people, wants to kill people, wants to burn down. Yeah, wants to burn down, Downing Street. And that whole, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time, for at least a year, that Keir Starmer won't last the term. And I said most of this year he won't last until the end of December. And there's still a chance. I mean, I know we're now like only 2 days away from the new year, but I mean this scandal is so terrible for Starmer. I don't see how he survives it.
Is it even the biggest scandal though?
Well, there's all sorts of other scandals. I mean, you could literally have a scandal a week, but we haven't got. I mean, we have to do a show for about 24 hours if you wanted to recount everything that he's got wrong. But he's U-turned on the farmers now. He's U-turned on the pensioners. Fuel allowance. He's U-turned basically, or he's about to U-turn on Brexit because he wants to try and form a closer union with the European Union, which nobody wants, frankly, apart from a bunch of bloody Remainers who are all insane. And he just has appointed one minister after another who's had to resign. We've had David Lammy making a complete, dog's breakfast of being foreign secretary, so he had to get rid of him, made him justice minister. He's got Yvette Cooper, useless home secretary, now in charge of foreign affairs. Shabana Mahmood, who's completely hopeless. Tulip Sadiq, who had to resign for corruption, even though she was corruption minister. We go through the whole thing. What was that? Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister, has got more houses than you can shake a stick at. She's got more houses than bloody Keith Richards, I think, at this point. And she doesn't ever know how much tax she has to pay, whether it's stamp duty or council tax. She gets it wrong, doesn't know what she's doing. She's plotting a comeback. Wes Streeting, only this week we found out that actually under Labour, you're now waiting even longer to see a GP. All this rubbish that they talk about, we've got 5 million new appointments. Well, yeah, but nobody's actually getting the appointments. You're just making appointments and then cancelling them. And that's why you keep getting more appointments. But it doesn't mean anything. People are getting worse and worse treatment in the NHS. You've got the likes of, what was that woman, Haig, who was the Transport Secretary?
Yes.
And turned out she couldn't stop nicking phones. And she had to resign. I mean, there's just been one.
You don't even mention Rachel Reeves.
Rachel Reeves,
Richard III.
Richard III, as we like to call her, worst chancellor in the history of chancellors, wrecking the economy. More people than ever have left the country in the last 10 to 15 months. I think it's 250,000 more people unemployed. It's harder and harder to get a job in this country. Hospitality business is going down the drain. Pubs telling Labour MPs they're not welcome to come in. We've now got hairdressers telling MPs from Labour they're not welcome to come in. It's an absolute shit show. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And nobody has. This guy, Starmer, has got to go. I don't really care who comes next at this point because he's a liar. He's a complete and utter dishonest crook who basically loves anything to do with Muslims and Islam, hates everything to do with Britain and white people. He's an absolute scumbag.
And some of the policies that they're bringing in under their government, which include the assisted dying bill that's been shoved through, all Fabian Society kind of talking points, if you will. I think George
Yeah, see,
Bernard
here's the
Shaw.
thing. See, the whole Fabian Society thing is something that's only really come up recently. Where's all
I
that come-
know.
Where's all that come from then?
Well, it's true because even Sadiq Khan, who we can talk about later, was the deputy secretary of it or something like this. George Bernard Shaw, who founded the Fabian Society, was talking about assisted dying way back then and about how natural selection and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Fabian Society story is just what it is. You know, the Fabian Society is a left-wing organisation that most people in the Labour Party have been in at some point or other. I don't think there's mysterious, figures behind the Fabian Society, plotting.
No, it's not mysterious because they list all the members on the actual website. Yeah, it's there in plain sight.
I mean, it's like the arguments I used to have with people about the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
People would say to me, "Oh, you don't realise what's going on. We're all being manipulated by the World Economic Forum." Well, we're not, because it turns out that old Klaus Schwab is just a dirty old bastard who's now
that's true.
for touching up young girls, and who's just very good at making a load of money out of all of these wankers who think it's a good idea to go.
That's what you'd like to think. No, not having a...
Well, yeah, but I mean, if this guy had any ability to influence what goes on in the world, then he would be doing it. But he's not.
He even said on camera, and I quote, and I'll find the video, that they successfully penetrated many of the governments in the Western world.
But he would say that, wouldn't he? Because he needs to.
He did.
No, but he needs to make himself sound important. But he's not. He's just a dirty old git.
Jacinda Ardern. Justin Trudeau. She's promoting a film that's out in UK cinemas at the minute.
She's not the leader of New Zealand anymore.
She was on the Graham Norton show the other day, and they're all.
Oh, blimey! Well, that's really powerful stuff. That I don't talk to your neighbours, But she's not in power anymore, and the same goes.
She laid the foundation. She was there during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I know, but she was fucking useless, right? And that's why she got kicked out.
She was tyrannical. She was tyrannical. Now they're all phoning over like she's
but even the old Kiwis actually saw through it in the end, and that's why she's not in power anymore. She doesn't have any power. Same as Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon, who was the great sort of saviour of the Western world, according to the mask and jab brigade, is now a fucking
she's played a part, and now they've on to the next bit.
No, but she's now the laughing stock. I mean, if you think John Swinney has got some master plan for anything, you don't know John Swinney, because I do know him. I've met him, and I've had lunch with him, and I know exactly what he's like, and he's no fucking good.
I probably might be right. He might be a passing person until the next phase. You never know.
Yeah, another one. I mean, the point is if any of these people were any good at manipulating us, they'd be doing it. But they're not any good at it, because we all see through it.
That takes us on to our next plank, who I completely, vehemently, that we say, agree with you for, because this person is an absolute idiot. And what is there's a definition of a useful idiot, I guess.
Yeah.
Let me just bring him up for you.
I'm very impressed with your multimedia skills.
Because last month, my step-grandfather...
In fact, I'll play this video in a second because it makes me laugh. But this guy, right, come on, Matt Hancock.
I mean...
Again, really quick. Here and there, here and now, politician who disappeared. No one knows where he is, but he's laid his mark by doing the bidding of other people. Go on, you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's now spending most of his time between the legs of Gina Paladangelo, as I used to call her. Gina Lollobrigida, as we used to say. And I think he lives in the same street with Gina as Julie Hartley-Brewer, believe it or not, in North London. I don't know what he's doing, but what an utter idiot, right? I mean, I don't know if you're going to show it, the video with him with his hands on old Gina's arse while he's snogging her.
Oh, I might do it later.
Which of course was right in the middle of the period of time when we weren't only not supposed to be fondling each other's arses, but we were not even supposed to be more than a meter away from, inside of each other, right? And he was clearly breaking that. So, I mean, what that tells you is they didn't believe a fucking word of it. right?
There you go. Yes.
So they were full of this kind of, Chris Whitty's the same. I guess we'll come on to him later. Who used to deliberately manufacture the graphs that they would show us every day. Remember at 5 o'clock, next slide, please. And they'd show you these graphs, but they wouldn't show you the start of the graph or a part of the graph that actually made it not look as bad as it was. Because in fact, that would have convinced most people. And I think most people now, even who believed it at the time, don't believe it now and they'd never do it again. Because they were so ridiculously over the top and they got it wrong so often. And it now turns out that they deliberately got it wrong. And they were deliberately misrepresenting the facts, deliberately misrepresenting the scale of COVID and the likely damage it would do to the public.
Yes.
I mean, it was absolutely disgraceful. And Hancock, I mean, he's so stupid, right, that he didn't even see Isabel Oakeshott was stitching him up, right? who befriended him, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember.
And I remember thinking to myself, I remember asking Isabel at the time, and she was very good because she's a very smart journalist. And I was like, what are you doing, like siding with this guy? I mean, it's just like damage your reputation. Everybody thinks he's a total arsehole. And of course, it turned out that she was only being nice to him so that she could rip him apart and get hold of all of his WhatsApp messages, which he gave her.
That is funny.
Complete idiot.
I bet there was a lot more that could have been exposed to them messages, but I do remember one of them being him saying when are we going to release a new variant.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But remember, they kept coming up with new variants. They kept saying, "Oh, there's a Kent variant, or there's a bloody, Indian variant, or there's a Vauxhall Station variant." I mean, they just made it up as they went along. It was completely ridiculous. And I do remember though at the beginning watching those films of all the dead bodies in Italy and everybody going, "Oh my God, this is awful. It's like a science fiction movie." And I mean, I knew loads of people who had sent their kids off on skiing holidays to Italy that year. And they all came back, and some of them had COVID, some of them didn't. Nobody died. It was like, who are all these people dying? Why is there all this footage of people dying? It was very odd. It was a very strange time. But thank God Hancock's out of politics now, anyway, so he can't really do any proper harm to anybody anymore.
He probably will make a comeback at one point, won't he? But yeah,
I'm not sure he can. I think he's so discredited because of the arse fondling that people would never take him seriously. I mean, he tried to make his comeback, didn't he, during "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out."
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that.
And even then, people were like, "Oh, he's not as bad as you think," but he's still a real twat. He just doesn't come across well.
I know people who were going, "Oh, we voted 3 times for him to win I'm a Celebrity." I'm like,
I mean, I think many people voted to keep him in just because it was funny. But he's one of those guys. If he was your next door neighbour, you'd be embarrassed. You wouldn't want to talk to him over the fence, would you?
Well, there were so many ridiculous moments. I used to love to hate him. You might remember from back in the day. And so it's still worthy of being on this Plank of the Decade. I've just saved this video.
Yeah.
This video here was the most laughable thing in the world. I'll play it for you and I'll explain why in a second.
Right.
We talk a lot of the outbreak in Liverpool and how that great city has had a terrible outbreak and got it under control. This means more to me than I can say, because last month my step-grandfather, Derek, caught COVID there, and on the 18th of November, he died. In my family, as in so many others, we've lost a loving husband, a father, a grandfather to this awful disease. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to everyone in Liverpool for getting this awful virus under control. It's down by 4/5 in Liverpool. That's what we can do if we work together in a spirit of common humanity. We've got to beat this, Madam Deputy Speaker. We've got to beat it together.
Fucking hell. So he, right?
Jesus Christ.
It's some journalists.
Grandfather Derek.
And it wasn't even right. So some people looked into it, and it was something like his stepsister's mother's ex-husband's uncle or something daft like that. It wasn't even his.
No, because he's clearly just a born liar. Do you remember when he went on GMB in the morning, I think, with Piers Morgan, and he burst into tears? because
No, I didn't. It was trying to contain his laughter.
well, yeah, but he was so kind of fake with it though that
Yeah.
he'd obviously decided I'm going to burst into tears on national television so that everybody can see what pressure I'm under. But he was clearly just getting his end away with old Gina Lollobrigida every
He
bleeding
was
week.
pissing himself laughing because the first vaccine guy
Right.
was called William Shakespeare.
Yeah, and also his good mate up in Suffolk, the pub landlord, who suddenly found himself being a millionaire
Oh,
because he was producing all sorts of PPE or something, right? I mean, it's just the whole
oh.
thing's a joke.
It was, and that's the problem with having this Labour Party in now. We blame all these 14 years of Tory government. They would not call out that all this PPE money was wasted because they
No.
think it wasn't. They think they needed more for it.
No, they wanted everything to be locked down longer. They wanted, I mean, don't forget, Keir Starmer didn't even want to reopen the schools. I was going, my kids literally had about 2 years missing out of their school education.
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't seem to have done them any harm. But the point is that a lot of other kids, it did do a lot of harm to, because my kids were lucky; they were living in a nice house with a nice garden in the countryside. But if you lived in a sort of 2-bedroom flat with these 3 brothers or something, it wasn't very nice. And Labour would never have opened the schools because they were singing the tune of the teaching unions, who were like, "Oh, we don't want to go back; it's too dangerous." It's like, fuck off! It's not dangerous at all.
My friend, her son, who was 5 years ago, so it must be about 7, I think.
Yeah.
She found him Googling, "Am I going to kill my family with COVID?" So they had to go. She had to go into some sort of therapy. It was like that's what they did to
Well, yeah,
them.
because they were telling them, don't poison and kill your granny and all this. I mean, they tried to do it again this year, didn't they? With the flu, the super flu. They were like telling kids, don't go to school because you might get sick and you might kill your granny. I mean, lucky, but nobody really pays any attention to that shit now.
You're gonna maybe not like my next prank because it's a friend of yours, but I think you might but he is probably above Matt Hancock in terms of how much I can't be doing with the guy.
Yeah.
I look like old. I thought I'd say though.
Loving the punk.
It's very loud. I'll probably get a copyright strike on YouTube.
Loving the steampunk vibe is very good. I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you'd have Piers Morgan on here. Well,
I can't not do, can I?
I mean, loads of my listeners and viewers hate Piers Morgan as well. And I mean, the thing about Piers is that I've known him a long time. I think I first met him in the 80s, right? So we're talking, I've met him before you were born, for heaven's sake. And he's always been a very good friend to me, no matter what's ever happened to me, including getting fired or getting hired or whatever it is. And he's got a lot of things wrong, and I wouldn't disagree with you in terms of the vaccine stuff, because I think he got all of that wrong. And he tries to get away with it now by saying, "Oh well, when the facts change, I changed my mind." Well, the facts didn't change. The facts were the same then as they are now. And I think what he got wrong was saying that people who didn't get vaccinated should be ostracized. They shouldn't be allowed to play football for professional football teams. You shouldn't be allowed to travel if you haven't been vaccinated, which kind of was true as well, to a large extent, of a lot of airlines and countries that people wanted to go to and all of that. But I mean, I know for a fact that lots of people of my acquaintance just used to fake tests all the time.
He probably did as well.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. But Piers is fundamentally a good guy. I can see why people don't like him, and I can see why people would want to call him a plank of the decade.
Yes.
And the thing about Piers is that he would probably quite like it. He probably quite likes the idea that you think he's a total wanker and you want to call him plank of the decade, because as long as people are talking about him, he's very happy about it.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I think one of the things he keeps saying is not that the facts change, but he knew somebody very close to him who was dying of COVID, and I assume he means Kate Garraway. And I don't believe he was dying of COVID, but anyway, that's another story.
Well, I mean, no, I think he did have a couple of people that he knows. I think most people knew somebody who had died of COVID. People
Do you
did die.
reckon?
Oh yeah, I mean, I know people who died of COVID. Mostly, they were older people. They weren't young, they weren't people, even my age. They were much older, and they tended to be more likely to be people who already had something else wrong with them. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
I'm not going to say that nobody died from COVID, because people did, but it was nothing like the numbers that they said it was going to be. And and what they never tell you is something like 99.9% of people who got COVID are fine.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
most people tested themselves with a test that's not worth whatever. And
I mean,
there's a lot-
I never did test myself,
no.
and I think at one point I might have had it, but I mean, I never stopped working, and I went into work every single day.
Oh,
And
you might have just had a cold or something.
no, I mean, there was, I know the difference between a flu, for example. It's like when people go, "Oh, I've got flu," and they come into work, you go, "Mate, you haven't got flu. If you had flu, you literally can't get out of bed." I've had bad flu a couple of times, and you're dizzy, you can't eat anything, you can't get out of bed, you're weak. That's what flu is. Flu is not going, "Oh, I've got a bit of a bad head, I've got a headache and runny nose," and that's not fucking flu. Sorry. In the same way that when you get something like COVID, it's a sort of respiratory thing. It feels, you
But
can
they were
feel
telling everyone that
in
it
your
was,
chest.
yeah.
You feel it. And there was a time when I think I might have had it for about a week, but it was too close to Christmas for me to stop working, because I had to film a load of stuff, and I just did it, and I just got through it. And I'm, at that time, you might have said that I was, before I now my new sylph-like self, I would probably have been described as morbidly obese, right? So I was presumably somebody that would have died, but I didn't, you know. So I think, and I mean, I do know lots of my friends who have had elderly relatives and people die. People did die. I'm not going to say
People
that
do die, It's
people do
the
die,
only thing guaranteed in life.
no, of course. But I think people did die from COVID, but it was just not
Mm.
in the numbers that they said they were. Because if you remember, during, I think it was 2020 or 2021, or maybe both, nobody died from the flu.
Yeah.
Whereas every single year, about 40,000 people died from the flu.
There were ministers, I think there were an Irish minister, and I've seen other people say that literally there were no flu cases this year.
Yeah.
So anyway, and because the past decade, I mean, COVID was a big part of it. It's still ongoing in lots of ways, but like
Well,
2020.
it's now just something that happens, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
people. I mean, there was a sort of an outbreak of it back in sort of, I would say, October, November time, where people would be like, "Oh, so and so's got COVID," and they would suddenly start talking about it again. But it was a bit like saying so and so's got flu. It wasn't suddenly like, "Oh my God, you better lock everything down and stop anybody from travelling and shut every airport and all that."
Stop the world.
I mean, one of the weirdest things I remember seeing was when, I think it was, would it have been 2022 maybe? When they did the sort of, we were supposedly open for business, and then they did another lockdown just before Christmas. I think it was 2022, might have been 2021, I can't remember. Anyway, my daughter was coming to visit from Dubai, so I went to the airport to pick her up, and I got to the airport, and I was like, "There's all these fucking planes coming in. I thought we weren't supposed to be going anywhere." And there were planes coming in from China, from Japan, from America, and I was going, "Hang on a minute, we've all been told we're not allowed to go anywhere. There's these fucking planes coming to Terminal 3. And one plane came in from China, and a guy walked out with his, how they like to wrap their suitcases up in cellophane, right?
Yeah.
And he was wearing a full, like, hazmat suit, literally like
Absolutely,
somebody,
yeah.
from, the forensic department of, Line of Duty or something. And I thought, this is really strange. And then my daughter came, and literally 2 days after she got here, we were standing in a Borough Market, and they announced, and Boris Johnson came out and announced, "Oh, we're going to have to lock down again." And she was like, "Oh, bollocks!" She was like, "She was staying in Dubai, where there was no
Yeah.
problem."
Oh, was there not? Although, to be fair to the guy in the hazmat suit, when I went to New York in 2019, I remember being in one of the tube subways, and
Yeah.
these were before any of the, October, whenever it was when it kicked off, like June. And the guy in the hazmat suit, Chinese guy, they love it, don't
Yeah.
they?
Oh, they do. Yeah. And they love a mask. I mean, they were always the first people you'd see wearing masks. When I used to walk around London, it was always the Japanese and Chinese always had a fucking mask on. You'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I'm going to say something then, but it's probably.
You're going to be accused of racism.
Yeah, I've done a
You
joke
might
before.
get fired from your job. You never know.
Years ago, I did do
Yeah.
a joke in a Chinese accent on the video, and it got pulled up at work, and I had to explain. I said, I said even Chinese people I know find it funny. I don't know what this shit.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is the thing. I mean, people say to me now, the world's gone completely mad. You can't take the piss out of anything anymore. You know,
Oh.
it's
You know,
ridiculous.
do you ever use Chat GPT just to have a little
I
look and
really
see?
don't. No, because
So-
I don't really trust it. You know, I'm not really a fan of AI.
Yeah, well,
I
the
think,
other month I tried to get it to do a poster for something, and
mm,
it was meant to be a joke, and it meant to be a Chinese person
oh yeah,
with a speech bubble saying whatever.
right.
Anyway, so I put, blah, 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 and it replied saying it was against its community guidelines or something. So I
Right.
replied and I said, well, I'm actually offended because I'm a Chinese person. So it then did what I asked it to do.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I
oh,
saw one of those notes on Facebook the other day, where I posted something about the show, the new show or something, or Plank of the Year, and I noticed for the first time, and I hadn't seen it before, this little line that said, you know, please be aware that you must adhere to our community guidelines in your comments. And I was like, fuck off,
it's
you
Kevin
know.
O'Sullivan flagged it or something.
Well, maybe is he on your list?
Yeah, you think he's on yours, I think. Yeah.
Well, he was on Plank of the Year. I haven't heard from him since. I don't know whether he likes it or not.
Well,
Um,
it'll be furiously checking the viewers on YouTube, won't it? He ain't got time.
I know.
Right, let's go on to our next one. Time's ticking. I'm having fun. 45
I
minutes.
know.
Yeah, who'd have thought it?
I know. Well, listen. I mean, you could do 24 hours on Plank of the Decade. You just couldn't. You wouldn't stop. I mean, you're gonna have to stop at some point. You know, because I'll get hungry or
Yeah,
something.
I'm hungry as well. My stomach just rumbled.
Also, now that
Yeah,
I've worked out, there's no trains to where I am. I'm not sure how I'm going to get back. I might have to walk home.
I'll just sleep there. Yeah,
Yeah, I could sleep here. Yeah, but there's no sofa yet. There's going to be a sofa soon, but you know.
nice. It's a
Anyway,
casting couch.
yes,
All right, okay.
indeed.
I love somebody you haven't put on your list, but I think you'll be mad at yourself for not putting on your list. Anyways, on my list. Why did you not put this man on your list?
Well, I didn't. My list was not a final list. It was only a sort of a starter for 10, as I said.
Yes.
There's many more than 10 that I could have put on there. I mean, I didn't put Joe Biden on it either. You know,
Mm.
doddering old git.
Mhm.
But yeah, James O'Brien definitely would be on any list of mine for Plank of the Decade because he literally is a plank. And he also tried to sue me as well.
Did
You know,
I?
yeah, because
Go on.
I once, it was during the time when Gary Lineker was riding high on the hog and having a go about almost everything to do with either Israel or migrants or something like that, you know. And I think it might have even been the migrants one where he went, you know, that Suella Braverman sounds like something out of 1930s Germany or some bullshit like that, right?
Yeah.
And I put out a tweet one night after I'd been to the rugby in which I said, trouble with Gary Lineker is that he listens to all of these mad champagne socialist lefties like James O'Brien, who's a pedo apologist and plank. And of course, being stupid, because James O'Brien is very stupid and not a proper journalist, by the way, either. And I know that for a fact. He didn't understand that the words pedo apologist are not the same as being called a pedo. A pedo apologist means somebody who apologizes for pedos, because that's exactly what he did. There's a guy called Carl Beach, you might remember,
Yes.
who he interviewed and who he did loads and loads on, who claimed that there was this kind of sex ring, paedophile sex ring running inside the Tory party, which included people like Edward Heath, included all sorts of, you know, other very high level MPs. I'm trying to think of some of the other people. Leon Britton was named, I think, as well,
Mhm.
former Home Secretary. Who's the other guy who's still alive at the moment, whose life was ruined?
Harvey Proctor.
Harvey Proctor, that's right, and a bunch of others, right? And James O'Brien was the only journalist who believed this guy. And it turned out, of course, the guy was a complete fantasist and a paedophile himself. So he made it all up. And O'Brien sort of never really apologized for it. And so therefore I call him a pedo apologist. He put out a tweet the next day and it was trending for like the whole weekend. It was like millions and millions of people looking at it. And he said, you know, I'm aware of vile and libelous tweets that's been put out about me. And I'm seeking the advice of lawyers, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, sure enough, he hired Carter Ruck, which is one of the big libel law firms in London, otherwise known as Carter Fuck, because they always used to, when I was in newspapers, they always used to represent all the worst celebrities, you know, anyone that wanted to sue the papers. And they sent me a 3-page letter in which they wanted me to retract what I'd said. They wanted me to pay a charity of his choice a load of money, and they wanted me to put a full apology on the top of my Twitter account. And I just told them to go fuck themselves, basically, because I knew that I hadn't libelled him.
Yes.
And in the end, and I just said, I think I sent them back a letter saying, one line just saying, if I were you, I'd advise your client to let sleeping dogs lie. And then I copied in a piece from The Spectator that had been written by Douglas Murray, which is all about the same stuff, very critical of him, and also a couple of phone conversations he'd had on his own show with paedophiles, right? There was one particular one where a guy rang up and said that he was attracted to 6-year-old girls, but he hadn't done anything about it. And James congratulated him, said, "Oh, mate, it's so great that you haven't acted on that." And I'm
Wow.
going, sorry? Why are you not reporting this guy to the police? He's talking about wanting to have sex with 6-year-old girls, and you're saying, actually, that's great because he's not doing it.
He's not doing it yet. Yeah.
So that all went away. So yeah, but he is a complete and utter arsehole, charlatan, horrible man as well.
Yeah.
I know people that have worked with him. Whenever they lose a producer, they have to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, so that they're not allowed to talk about what an absolute bastard he is. Because he's really horrible. He's horrible to the people he works with, and everybody
I can
hates him.
imagine. Yeah, and he's a fraud.
And he's a fraud. Yeah, he was never a journalist. The furthest he got in journalism was writing sort of celebrity puff pieces for the diary column in the Express when I knew him. And then he wrote a video review column for video games in the Daily Mail. That's as much journalism as he's ever done.
And this guy, an impressionist. I don't know if you've seen him.
Yes, I have
really
seen it.
I'll go quick play of this. By the way, we're at 51. We're about to go to 10 past.
Yeah.
All right.
All I've got to do is do plank of the day and then figure out how I'm getting home.
Yeah. All right. Let's watch Tony Lapidus.
We now return to the question of who was Charlie Kirk.
Oh no, I've fucked it up somehow because I've got the other thing playing in the background.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well, you can.
I'll play it after.
We now return to the question of who was Charlie Kirk. For those of you who don't know or are just tuning in now, of course, Charlie Kirk was the fascist American activist who was shot and murdered a few days ago. Is it safe to call it a murder? Is it accurate to call it a murder at this stage? I mean, all we know at the moment is that a bullet was fired in the general direction of Charlie Kirk. It did strike him in the neck, and now, of course, he is dead. But I don't know that doesn't mean that it's a little bit premature to call it a murder at this stage. But hey ho, I always stand to be corrected. Billy's calling from Cornwall. Billy, who was Charlie Kirk?
Hi, James. Charlie Kirk was a disgusting, vile pig. He was a misogynist, and I hated everything he stood for, and I hated him.
Well, thank you for that, Billy. That was an extremely impassioned and articulately stated point that I do hope will shed at least a little bit of light for my listeners on who Charlie Kirk actually was. So thank you for that, Billy. Emma's calling from Southend. What would you like to say?
Hello, James. Can I just say, he was a friend of Donald Trump's. He was a fascist. The man was a complete fascist.
It's an interesting point that you raised there, Emma, because I think lots of people may not be aware, and I plead guilty that I probably should have done a little bit more research myself on who Charlie Kirk was. But what people don't realise that, of course, he was a close friend, he was a close confidant, he was an associate, he was a fundraiser, he was a flipping admirer of Donald Trump, and therefore he was, by extension, a self-proclaimed fascist. That's just an incontrovertible fact. That's not an opinion, that's just counting. But I don't know whether that sufficiently answers the question of who Charlie Kirk was. Perhaps Simon calling from Norwich knows. Simon, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Charlie Kirk was a misogynist, fascist, racist, all wrapped in one. How could anybody follow him? He was disgusting.
I mean, this is another one of life's conundrums, isn't it, Simon? I mean, I've often wondered how individuals like Charlie Kirk with such scum views managed to rise to the top and influence, convince an entire population of other scumbags that they should subscribe to his rotten views. How do they do that? They seem to have an almost an X factor, a magic, an almost je ne sais quoi. That enables them to kind of poison the mind of individuals. I find it genuinely discombobulating. I'm genuinely perplexed. I don't understand. Perhaps I never will. Perhaps Edward calling from Barnsley can explain it. Edward, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I think your calls have been a bit unfair. There was another side to Charlie.
Sorry, Edward, I'm going to have to cut you off. I think my producers have made the mistake of thinking that this was a temporary lapse and thinking that this was a programme for scumbags like you. 7 minutes after 11:15 is the time. Amelia Cox is here with your headlines.
And I'll edit this bit out. So
Well, he's a very good addition anyway. I'm glad you put him in.
I'm going to put him in as well. Now, you wanted to talk about top of your list, Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
But I've also, just for the sake of keeping things compact, put other folk of the royal family on there too.
Yeah. Well, you could probably put them all in there, couldn't you, really? I mean, Charles, the now king, notwithstanding the fact that he's got cancer, you know, I like to speak ill of people who are not very well. But, I mean, he has been pretty hopeless as the king. He's like, you know, he's always been a bit cantankerous. He's, you know, do you remember when he was signing that document when he was made king? And old Camilla was standing, and the pen didn't work, and he was like, he was really grumpy. Because the thing that people forget is that these people have had such a life of privilege that it's absolutely ridiculous to expect them to behave like normal people, right? But he's also woke. You know, he talks a lot about, you know, being king of all the faiths of the country as opposed to just being king of the Church of England. He talks about, you know,
some people say he's a secret Muslim, don't they?
well, I don't think he's a secret Muslim. I think
I
he's just
know.
trying to be. I think the trouble is with a lot of these people in sort of what you might call the establishment, they think that that's the right way to talk. They think that, you know, it's the right way to be. Like the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who I would also chuck in there, who is meant to be the actual head of the Anglican Church in this country. He spends more time talking about Muslims than he does talking about Christians. You know, and you just think, what's wrong with you? You know, stand up for what you're supposed to be in charge of instead of everything else. And, you know, he's also got this kind of green obsession, Charles. You know, he drives a car, an Aston Martin powered by wine and cheese or some rubbish, you know. He's just a very odd bloke. Camilla apparently is great fun. I mean, I knew somebody that used to know them quite well. And apparently she's filthy, loves to sell filthy jokes. And so I think she's all right. But William's the same. I mean, William and Kate, everybody goes, oh, they're great. They're going to be the next big thing. But he's another one, obsessed with green agenda, obsessed with bloody wokery, obsessed with, you know, let's make everybody equal. And it's like, well, you can't make everybody equal. You're the son of a man who's never done a day's work in his life, and neither of you, even though you might have flown a few helicopters around about Anglesey for a while. You know, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the royal family. I think after the Queen died, something else died with it, you know. But I mean, the true enemies of the state when it comes to the royal family, Prince Andrew and Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan, just an absolute pair of tossers. You know, they've lost, I think, their 11th publicist this week.
Wow.
Who's the guy that was standing around when Harry wrote his book, when, you know, they did the Netflix documentaries and he was always defending him. He's now gone. She's just the most awful woman I think you could ever imagine meeting. Can you imagine living with her? You know, Harry, you know, what are you doing? And I used to say that, you know, when they first lived in LA and they had that big wall around the house, it wasn't to keep the paparazzi out, it was to fucking keep him in. Because, you know, he probably wanted to escape every 5 minutes. And he's just so thick and stupid, and pussy whipped. You know, she gave him the pussy, I'm afraid, and he fell for it, and he's never got over it. Now he can't get out. You know,
I have sympathy for him. I have a bit of sympathy. I mean, I'm not a royalist at all.
I think he's worse than her.
I think imagine waking up one morning thinking, oh my God, is this the family I'm in? Look at my dad's this, you know, Jimmy Savile's best mate, blah blah blah. My uncle can't even sweat when it's all that. And if I were him, I know that he's gone with her, but I'd have escaped a long time ago.
Yeah, but he could have escaped with somebody a bit more appropriate as opposed to her. She is just ghastly, you know, fucking B-part actress, who is such a narcissist that she thinks everything revolves around her. And the reason she didn't like being in the royal family is because she couldn't be at the front of the queue. And she couldn't understand why she had to queue up behind Catherine, Princess of Wales, you know. And she's just so manipulative. But I think he's worse because he should know better. He's the one that should actually understand that his life is granted to him by virtue of the taxpayers in this country. You know, he's never had to work a day in his life again. People go, oh, no, but he went in the armed services. Well, there's a lot of people that I know who talk about his time in the army and the armed services, and it wasn't exactly what it's being cracked up to be, shall we say, you know. And as for Andrew, I mean, this is a guy who apparently went to Bangkok, as it were,
Hey.
for a 4-day visit. And I think during the 4 days he was there, he hired 40 hookers, right? That's 10 a day. That's pretty good going.
That's what I was going to say. That is a good going. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I presume he was just watching them half the time. But, you know, the fact is that, you know, he's a sleazeball, a scumbag. And I mean, he's done nothing either. And people go, oh, but he was in the Falklands. Well, maybe, but a long time ago that was.
And then you've got Sarah Ferguson still standing by and taking the privilege of what he gets.
Yeah.
Course, yeah.
I know, but of course he hasn't got any privilege left. So whether she hangs around, she's probably looking for another rich bloke to kind of drape herself over. But I'm afraid she's not quite the beauty that she once was. So good luck with that.
She got a lot of money off Jeffrey Epstein at one point, so maybe she's still living off that.
Well, it wasn't that much though.
No,
I mean,
15 grand, I think, weren't it?
I mean, 15 grand doesn't keep you for very long at her level. You know what I mean? I mean, that's about a week's worth of champagne. You know? And I think a lot of it was used to pay off the ski chalet in Switzerland or wherever the fuck it was, you know. No, I mean, generally speaking, I never used to say this, but I don't think we would be that much worse off if we didn't have a royal family anymore. I mean, I used to say William and Kate will be the answer, but I'm not sure they are anymore. You know, I think the longer it goes on, the longer Charles is in charge, and the more these kind of stories come out about Andrew and Harry and all the rest of it, I just think people are going, you know what? Why are we even bothering?
I think the state of the UK as well, and just like, you know, letting all these migrants in, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Looking from town to town, city centre, just being dilapidated, and having this sideshow, whatever you want to call it, is just embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think a lot of people are seeing the world slightly differently now because, you know, life is tough for a lot of people, you know, and they see these characters swanning about, cutting ribbons and bloody, you know, visiting, you know, homeless shelters and all that. Well, that's not really helping anything, you know. How about you open up Buckingham Palace and put a few homeless in there, for heaven's sake?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not giving the reflection of what society is not what they are. Yeah.
Exactly right. So.
Oh, sorry about that. 1 second. Get him off. So some people commented on the post that we put out yesterday saying we're doing this show. These are some of their planks. So Shillits, we can all sneer at the current government with the likes of Starmer and Lammy, and that's fully justified. However, as unpopular as it could be, I'd vote for Boris Johnson to be plank of the decade. It was at the helm of locking us all down while partying. All a shower of shit, though.
Yes. Well, he was one of mine originally on the first 10 I put out because I think Boris was someone that really a lot of people had a great deal of hope for, you know, when he got into power in 2019. And believe it or not, you know what he said when he got into power? That he was going to bring down migration to 20,000 a year, right? And ever since 2019, it's just ballooned up to now what is over 1 million a year, right? Because I'm talking legal and illegal altogether, you know. And not only that, but he was responsible, as you say, for locking everybody down, for believing the bullshit that came out of Chris Whitty's mouth and all the other, you know, so-called scientific advisors from SAGE, all of whom had an axe to grind, all of whom had their own kind of personal reasons for making money. As we recently found out, they're all in receipt of millions of pounds of grants from the Wellcome Foundation and all the rest of it, you know, and they never told us any of that. They didn't just forgot to mention the fact that, you know, we've got some shares in a vaccine company and all that sort of stuff, you know. So Boris was a massive disappointment. I think a lot of people thought, you know, finally we've got somebody with a character who's going to push through proper conservative values. He's going to get Brexit done, which is how he got elected, if you remember, because we'd had Theresa May and years and years and years of just stalemate, nothing happening. Every time she went to the European Union, they just pissed her around, and she came back with an even worse deal than the one she thought she was going to get. But I just thought he was really, really disappointing as a leader. A lot of people say he was a great campaigner, but he's no good at running anything. And it sounds as though his entire government was just chaotic. You know, when you think of all the things that happened from Matt Hancock to, you know, the wallpaper scandal. You know, he got his latest wife into Downing Street, you know, Carrie, and it turns out that she was running the show, and it was only her friends that got any access to the Prime Minister. And he's just clearly a very disorganised guy. And I
It
think,
purposely messes his hair up before he goes onto the
yeah.
cameras. And
Well, I mean,
stuff.
I know
Why?
I know people that work with him, and all of that sort of bumbling oafish stuff is just bizarre. But you know, he came into the Talk Studios not that long before I got let go, shall we say. And he came up to me very enthusiastic. He shook me by the hand. "Hello, Mike. How are you?" And I'd never met him before.
Wow.
And I thought it was a bit weird, you know. And of
He was
course,
supposed to be getting his own show on GB News. That never came to.
because what he's very good at is doing deals for money. So he got about, I think, about 120,000 quid out of GB News, and I think all he did was, I think, 2 shows in which he was the guest, and then nothing else. You know, because what he's really good at is signing deals to get paid. Same with his book. His book's now in the bargain basement shop where, you know, it's not selling very well.
Probably didn't
And
even write it.
well, this is the thing, you know, whether he's still got it, I don't know. I mean, even up until last year, people were saying, "Oh, maybe Boris is the answer. Maybe he can revive the Conservative Party." And all my viewers and listeners say, no, Boris totally let us down. He didn't get Brexit done. He screwed it all up. He allowed the French to fuck us around on fishing rights. He allowed them to mess about with Northern Ireland. He never did the deal properly. He just kind of said, "We've done a deal," and then ran out of the room. And everyone went, "What deal's he done? He hasn't done a deal." And then, as you say, he screwed up with the lockdowns and locked us
Well,
down
when you
far
say
too often.
screwed up, I also don't think, and you know that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't reckon they were in hospital when they said they was.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that far.
Intensive care, come on. And then what, Donald Trump exactly at the same time.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he wasn't very healthy.
Well, yeah.
And I remember going to bed that night thinking, I'm going to wake up in the morning, he's going to be dead. You know.
Yeah, no, that's the power of the media, isn't it?
But I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he was in the hospital. I mean, the trouble with conspiracy theories is you've got to have an awful lot of people involved in it, right? So you have to have the nurses who spoke about it afterwards, they'd have to be involved. The entire administration of the hospital would have to be involved. You know, everybody in Downing Street would have to be involved. In my experience of those kinds of operations, when something like that is faked, you always find out about it, right?
There's loads of whistleblowers.
Yeah, there are loads of whistleblowers, but there hasn't been one about that. And there's a reason why there hasn't been one about that, because it happened.
Yes, yes.
I mean, you might have to nominate yourself at this rate, the way you go.
No, you might have to nominate yourself. In fact, I could nominate.
There are a couple of people I saw who have nominated me anyway for getting fired, which is fine, you know.
But also we've got the concrete situation, don't we?
We've got the concrete situation. Although I always say to people, you know, my lawyers said that I wasn't fired because whenever I would say, they were like, "No, they just haven't renewed your contract." And I'm like, "Well, the same thing." They're like, "It's not actually not in law. It's not." I don't mind being, you know, some people don't like being fired. I don't care. You know, I've been fired like 5 times in my life. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, some people are just unmanageable, aren't they? I'm the same.
I'm definitely unmanageable. I mean, I can't. I'm just very bad at being managed. I can't do what I'm told. I have some kind of syndrome I've got. I don't know what it is. I think it's called. What's it called? So there is a name for it. It's defiance syndrome or something like that. You know, whenever anybody tells me to do something, I just go, no, I'm not fucking doing it. Including, you know, at railway stations, they tell you to walk that way. I'm like, no. I'm not going to walk another way. I'm not going to walk the way you tell me to walk. Fuck off.
Good on you. Good on you. We've got one more comment from here. Let me just put it on a bigger screen if I can in a momento. Great content matters. I've not come across this person before. Prince Charles, even though not Prince anymore, he is the only one with the sufficient longevity of stupidity. All politicians' careers get ended, but Charles is in it for the long game. He's been preaching to us about the climate fraud for decades. He's also been Islam's useful idiot for years. He has codified woke orthodoxy and made it legally acceptable. He is King Plank. Well, we've talked about him, but that's quite a good.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that all fits in with the narrative that I was giving you earlier, that actually they're all pretty useless now. And I'm not sure that I'm in favour of keeping them on, keeping any of them on, you know?
Yes. All right, we're nearing the time to finish, but I'll just go through a few different names that we've not
Yeah.
mentioned that you put on the list. You give me a sentence about each one. Should we do it that way? All right. Ed Miliband.
Ed Miliband, complete maniac, utterly useless, also a liar. Keeps telling us he's giving us 300 quid back and keeps not giving us 300 quid back. And instead, electricity prices just keep going up and up and up and up. Every time he tries to explain why he believes that going green will make everything better, he gets it all round his ears because he can't actually explain it at all. And yet, he's the most popular and most likely successor to Keir Starmer, which tells you a lot about the Labour Party, doesn't it?
Fucking hell, yes. Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg, what can I say about her? The doom goblin. Used to love climate change, activity. Used to think that saving the planet was the main thing. She said the planet would be dead by 2023, I think. And obviously she got that wrong. And now she doesn't mention the climate anymore. She's too busy waving Palestinian flags around and getting arrested for supporting Palestine action because apparently, going on a human flotilla to Gaza means more than saving the earth. So, I mean, she's 22 years old now. She needs to grow the fuck up and stop being an arse.
Everyone's favourite puppet, eh?
Yeah.
Gary Lineker.
Gary Lineker, yeah, I saw him actually at Piers Morgan's party, funnily enough. And I went up to
I
him
did
and
wonder,
said,
yeah.
I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Gary, it's great that you and I got cancelled the same year." And he said, he went, "I didn't get cancelled." He's obviously a bit touchy about that. But he has, I mean, obviously landed on his feet. He's got loads of money. He's a champagne socialist. Still don't believe a word of it that when he said he had that refugee in his house. I just don't believe that.
No, I don't. Do you remember that letter?
Yeah, the letter that said,
In perfect cursive.
yeah,
whatever it is.
you're a much nicer man than I thought, and not as conservative as I thought you would be. Yeah, because everyone from bloody Somalia writes letters like that,
Extremely good looking. Oh.
Yeah, and I just think the man is an utter disgrace. And I don't mind him being rich. I just wish he would stop pretending that he's left wing, because he isn't. Because you can't be when you're rich. He's just an absolute plank.
A couple of wild cards for you. I did find this video of.
Here in the studio.
Oh, wait, Femi
Olawole, who's from Our Future,
Femi.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Lion's Den, I think I can only say. You've been brave enough to come in, so I'm not going to be too horrible to you. But what on earth do you think you're doing?
Well, I find it quite ironic that you said it's not a march for jobs, and not a march for food, not a march for peace,
Right.
when that's literally the primary things that our EU membership has managed to secure over the past 40 years.
Right. Do you remember the Balkans War? The Balkans War.
Go for it.
You remember when there was a war in Bosnia? Yeah, that was under EU auspices.
You always bring Bosnia up, don't you? Go on. You missed him off your list.
Well, I always bring Bosnia up whenever anybody says, the EU's been responsible for peace in Europe for the last 50 years, because unfortunately that proves them to be completely wrong, because the Bosnian War happened because the European Union and the United Nations recognised Croatia, and everybody else in the former Yugoslavia went, hang on a minute, what are you doing that for? That's where all the money is. And that's why they all started fighting each other. So the EU was directly responsible for causing the Bosnian War, and which is why people like Femi, who's a complete and utter twat, get it wrong. And have you seen him lately, by the way? Because he's a bit like Greta Thunberg. Back then he was sort of relatively young, relatively impressionable.
Yes.
And there was a certain kind of,
Funded
boyish
by
charm.
nefarious sources.
Now he just looks like an old bloke who doesn't understand the world. He just looks like an old guy who should be sitting on a pavement holding up a sign saying the end is nigh,
Yeah.
selling peanuts, He's a complete idiot. And I don't even know, I've never known who's backing him or where the money's coming from, but he doesn't seem to have a job of any kind,
No, it's another useful idiot. Yes. Right, last one. Tommy Robinson.
Oh, Tommy Robinson, plank of the decade. Well, I'm sure he'd love me to say something terrible about him, because he seems to feed off the fact that, he wants me to apologise to him or debate him or something, and all of his mates are constantly saying, so sorry to Tommy, you've called him names. Well, the last time I saw him on social media talking about, he called me a pedo. He's called me all sorts of other nasty names. I don't really mind. It doesn't bother me. I don't like the guy. I think he's a horrible little wanker. and I'm never going to change my view.
You
And
can support the movement without having to
well, it's
support
not
the
really a
country.
movement. Is it? The
Yeah.
movement appears to exist in order for him to go and live in Spain, drive around in Bentleys with £13,000 worth of cash in his pocket, which he claims he's putting into. He's the guy is a grifter, and you know, I don't object to what he does, but I object to what he pretends to be. I would say that he doesn't really
Fair.
care. He talks about being a patriot. He doesn't even live here.
Yes. Neither
You know?
do his most loyal supporters.
No, most of them all have moved away and live somewhere else. Don't pay tax. Don't
Yeah.
do. Don't do anything which is in any way relatable to what ordinary people's lives are like in this country. And he sort of flies in every now and again to a rally, and he's got a lot of support. And good luck to him. But he's quite capable of looking after himself. And I'm never going to debate him because what's the point?
No, it just further divide people anyway.
But I
wouldn't it?
wouldn't. But I wouldn't even give him the honour of becoming a plank of the decade, to be honest.
All right. Well, that's a little wild card one. So, right, we've come to the end of that. There's still so many that we haven't mentioned.
I know.
But
We never did Joe Biden, who could certainly be in there, or Hillary
Yes.
Clinton could certainly be in there. Emmanuel Macron, Trudeau. I mean, all of these sort of. We maybe do an international version.
Let's.
Next week or something.
Yeah, we could do plank of the month as well. We'll do whatever.
We could, absolutely. Well, we're going to be doing Plank of the Week in the first week we're on, which is going to go out Friday, January the 9th, 7 o'clock. And we've already got a panel associated with us for that. So we're looking forward to that. And like I say, we'll be, I don't know when this is going out, but we're launching on Monday, January the 5th, 7
I'll try and get it out today, Tuesday.
Okay. All right,
yeah.
cool.
All
Cool.
right. So, nice one. So, who should we go for plank of the decade then? Out of all those we mentioned.
Out of all of the people we've mentioned, I think Boris Johnson. Actually.
Wow.
I think Boris Johnson would be, because I think he's done more damage to this country before Starmer even got to. I mean, Starmer's ruining it worse, but
I've missed
Boris,
someone out. I've missed someone out.
Who?
We need to watch this. I'm sorry, but this guy. I don't actually know what you think about this guy, but this guy is up there for me. Maybe even above Piers Morgan. Maybe just below Piers Morgan. You know.
All right.
An Oscar nominee. Now watch me snatch trophies. Cover girl, put the bass in your walk. Head to toe, let your whole body talk. Cover girl, put the bass in your walk. Head to toe, let your whole body talk. Walk, now walk. Walk, now walk.
Oh no, I could be sick.
That is very weird. That high heel thing. My God.
I hate that guy.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he's badly advised. Let's put it that way. And I would say put him in Plank's list because he keeps hiring Mike Parry to appear on his radio show. He's about the only person left who gives him time of day.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, I haven't really got a massively anti-Jeremy Vine view, but I mean, I don't listen to his show, and I don't watch his show either.
I think he hogs the airwaves, doesn't he? It's worse than you when you're at talk. He goes from goes to Jeremy.
It's not going to change. It's not going to change my overall definite view that it's got to be Boris Johnson because he ruined immigration in this country. He failed to get Brexit done, and he locked us all down for 3 years. So for me, it's definitely him.
I could actually. I wouldn't have said that initially, but I think for them reasons alone, it was the helm when the whole COVID shit show was going on. And
well, if you think about what Britain was like before Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and then think about what it's like now, a lot of it's his fault.
Yeah. Maybe. Or there's an agenda at play that's All right, I will go for that too.
All
So
right.
Boris Johnson, plank of the decade.
Definitely.
Now, before you go, Mike, because of all the comments underneath saying Mike Graham, blah blah blah, may I play your concrete video?
Sure.
And then would you like to explain how we can actually grow concrete and blah blah blah?
Well, of course you can grow concrete. I mean, everybody knows that that's true now because all the people who hate me and who try and insult me go, "Oh, you're the idiot who thought you could grow concrete." Well, guess what? You actually can grow concrete. It's something that's being done around the world as we speak.
Has anyone ever shouted concrete in the street?
No, but I did once have a guy in a petrol station roll his window down and go, "Are you the concrete guy?" And he went, "Oh my God!" He said, "What a great video!" But he was quite nice about it. But no, nobody's ever shouted concrete. But I'm as famous around the world for that as I am for anything else.
It's true. But do you think you're going to get concrete shouted at you for the rest of your life?
Probably, but I don't mind. You know, it doesn't bother me because I know I was right. And you know, the bloke who was in the video, Cameron, nobody's
Yes.
ever heard of him since. I mean, I don't know what
Plank.
he's doing now. You know.
No. Maybe we need to come up with something to overshadow the concrete era. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, I tried to do that when I got fired. Let's still get on about the concrete.
I love it. Mike, it's been a pleasure.
Good to
Thank
see you.
you. Good to see you too. It's been a laugh.
All right, take care.
Please come back to Charlotte's Web soon. Oh,
I
wait.
will.
Last one. Where can people find you and when does the
Oh, yeah. Well, the MikeGrahamShow.com is the Substack. So if you go on there, you'll see all sorts of really, really good exclusive content, which you'll only get there, or if you're a premium subscriber on YouTube. And on YouTube, it's the Mike Graham Show channel, which you should go and find. It's like it, subscribe to it, and we'll be kicking off live on January the 5th. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Morning, Mike.
Oh, hello. What are you glued to, Cameron?
Just your screen, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. What do you do for a living,
Well,
Cameron?
I'm a carpenter.
A carpenter, right. So how safe is that for the climate?
Well, I work with timber, which is a much more sustainable material rather than concrete. I also
But you work with
retrofit-
trees that have been cut down then, don't you?
It's a sustainable building practice
How is it sustainable if you're killing trees?
because it's regenerative. You can grow trees.
Right. Well, you can grow all sorts of things, can't you?
Well, you can't grow concrete.
You can. See you, Cameron. Cheerio.